Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. I'm out here on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. It's about 82 degrees. Nice breeze coming through here, really muggy. So I'm making sure I stay hydrated while I'm out here. What I'm bringing you today is a video comparing three 40 Smith & Wesson guns. And I've done these before. This time I'm comparing the Smith & Wesson M&P 40. This was a police trade-in from a local police department. This is a full-size 40 Smith & Wesson handgun versus the Smith & Wesson SD40VE, which is almost the same size as the M&P 40. I think the M&P 40 and the Smith & Wesson SD40VE both have 4 1/4 inch barrels or thereabout. They both have a pretty full-size grip. They both have a hinge trigger, but they're a little bit different. Both of these are no safety models, so those are very similar to each other. And then for the other one that I have here is my Glock Model 23. Now a better comparison for this would be a Glock Model 22, but I don't have one of those. I may eventually get one. I'd like to. The Glock 22 just has a little bit longer grip, so realistically this one is a little bit more compact. The barrel length I think is 3 3/4 versus 4 1/4, or they're pretty close anyway. It's the best comparison I can do. And really what I'm doing today is kind of a gut feel. What do I like better, or what can I handle better? I have an inkling that the M&P 40 is going to be the one that I handle the best because I like the grip angle better. It's a little bit heavier, and with a full grip it's a little bit easier to hold. The SD40VE is a little bit lighter than the M&P 40, and this one tends to be a little bit snappier. And then the Glock, I mean, it's a Glock, it'll work. The grip angle being different on those, I tend to shoot a little bit low just because I tend to point it down. It's just the way it is. So I'm going to go ahead and do some shooting on these. I will set up some accuracy shots in a little bit, but for now I just want to get a feel for these, and I didn't bring a ton of ammo, so my accuracy shooting is going to be probably limited to 2 mags per gun. But let's go ahead. I'll do 2 mags in each of these just to see how they feel, and then we'll move on from there. So the M&P 40 definitely has a lot of weight to it, feels good. And for comparison, I'll be using some PMC Bronze 165 grain flat point ammo. Very controllable. I understand why police departments carry these. Being that the 40 Smith & Wesson has more recoil than a 9mm, having that full-size grip that I can easily get all 3 of my fingers on, give a good solid purchase on the gun, plenty of room to wrap my support hand around. And I'm not a thumbs forward guy. I don't like putting my thumbs on the side of the gun. So when I shoot, I basically have my hand like this, with my support hand underneath my shooting hand, and my fingers just wrapped around the front. Just how I'm comfortable shooting. So here we go again. Definitely very controllable. Even though the 40 Smith & Wesson has more recoil again than a 9mm, I feel like that handgun is extremely controllable. The added weight of the slide helps. Let's go to the SD40VE, which I know has a little bit stronger trigger and a little bit longer trigger. This guy has an extremely light trigger, and it's nice and crisp when it breaks and resets. But I have shot the Smith & Wesson SD series quite a bit, so let's see if I can do as well with this one. Definitely has a sharper recoil. Definitely has a sharper recoil impulse, and the trigger tends to bite my finger a little bit. Just a little different shape and a little different weight on it. Yeah, Definitely has a little bit more recoil because the gun is a little bit lighter. I think the grip is a tiny bit shorter and it's not as thick. Plus the stippling on it's not as good as the M&P. So let's move on to the Glock 23. This one I haven't shot a whole lot. I put a few hundred rounds through it. I do have, actually not that magazine, but I have Pierce PG FML magazine plates on these, so they have a little bump on there which fills in the front of the frame on this. Gives me a little bit better grip on this guy, so I still can get all three fingers on this. Well, let's see how I can do with the recoil on this guy. And it failed to extract a round. Interesting. Glock reliability. Glock perfection. Doesn't want to extract every single round. I'm not sure why. And don't tell me I'm limp wristing it, because I'm not. I'm squeezing the crap out of this thing. And this is the same exact ammo I just shot out of the other two guns. So I think this one is slightly more manageable than the SD40VE with the same ammo. But again, I did have 2 rounds that didn't want to eject. I'm not exactly sure why. I think still, so far, the M&P 40 is more controllable. Honestly, I could get used to the Glock. I really could. It's probably not my first choice, and I know I've bashed Glocks for years because they're hideous, and they are hideous, but they're growing on me. You know, they do shoot well, they're pretty reliable. So I'm going to go ahead and reload, and we'll walk down a little bit closer to the targets, and I'll do some accuracy shooting with the 3 guns. Well, it's very hot out. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun is very high in the sky. My GoPro battery is getting low, and the camera's getting hot. So I'm going to turn around. I'm going to point you at the target, and I'm going to do 2 magazines out of the M&P, 2 magazines out of the SD, and then 2 magazines out of the Glock, and let's see how the accuracy compares between the 3. So let me go ahead and spin you around here. So the top target is going to be the M&P 40, the middle one is going to be the SD40VE, and the bottom one is going to be the Glock. So here we go with the M&P 40, and I got to get set up here, so give me a second. Trying to shuffle all this stuff around in my pockets. That's why I like cargo pants. All right, so I am about 5 yards away right now. Not too far, but normal distance. So here we go with the M&P 40. Sights might have been set up for somebody a little different than me. I'm hitting left a little bit, but I tend to do that sometimes. Might just be the way I look at the sights or the way I'm pulling the trigger. I would say that's acceptable. That's those circles are about 7 inches. Again, I'm at 5 yards, 15 feet, give or take. And I think I only might have missed that circle once or twice, maybe. Looking at it, maybe a little bit more, but I'll have to watch the footage. So switching over now to the SD40VE, which I have the most time on out of all 3 of these guns. But I tend to pull that one a little bit low for some reason. Not exactly sure why. I don't shoot 40 that much, so it does have a bit more recoil. That was acceptable on the second magazine. It was getting a little bit better, except I had one in the bottom target, so keep that in mind when I go to the Glock. That one that's in the bottom target is not from the Glock. Here we go with the Glock Model 23. Was that effective? I would say that all three of these guns have about the same accuracy and the same effectiveness. I completely demolished that 2x4, split it completely in half, or 3 or 4 or 5 pieces. But I would say the accuracy between these three guns is about the same. I will say the Glock hurts a little bit more to shoot because this being the 23, it has a shorter grip. But if I had a 22, I think I could get used to shooting this and probably be about as accurate as I am with the other two. Any way you look at it, 40 Smith & Wesson is a pretty good round. I shied away from buying one for many years, and now that I have a few of them, I'm kind of glad I do, because they are a pretty powerful gun. They work very well. Are they effective? I would say they are. So what's the conclusion of this video? I would say that out of the three, the M&P 40, the SD40VE, and the Glock 23, I'd shoot the M&P 40 the best. It has the best trigger, it has the longest grip, so you can hold it the best, plus you can change the back strap if you needed a thicker frame. It had the least amount of recoil because it has the heaviest slide. Overall, I shot this one best, it felt better, and out of the three, this was the least expensive gun. This cost me $275 used because it was a police trade-in, and this is an M&P version 1.0. This is not an M&P 2.0, this is a 1.0. Police trade-in, great gun, great value. The SD40VE, I think, came in the middle out of the three as far as my accuracy with it. This one has probably the second most, it probably has the most recoil because it's the lightest out of the three. The trigger on this one tends to bite my finger because of the hook shape on it, and it's not real smooth. The M&P trigger is actually a little bit better. They're similar, they're both that hinge trigger, but this one, even with an Apex spring kit in it, feels a little bit heavier than the M&P 40. So this one is kind of in the middle on the price range, the middle on the accuracy, and may have the most recoil out of the three. I shoot it well though because I've had an SD9VE for a long time, and I have the SD9 2.0 as well. So it's not a bad gun. This one you can get for around $350 to $450. I think I spent about $450 on this one, but it came with 5 magazines, and the magazines for this you can find anywhere. They're about 17 bucks a piece, so that's another benefit for this guy. Whereas the M&P, the magazines are around $40 a piece. And then the Glock, I think, is in the middle on the recoil. It's not the worst recoil. The trigger on this one is obviously pretty good. The accuracy on this one, probably comparable to the SD40VE, but this is the most expensive out of the three. Used, I think I paid $600 or $629 for this. The magazines are readily available, and they're cheap as well. And usually this thing is really reliable. But shooting that PMC bronze ammo, I had 4 or 5 stoppages where it did not eject the round. So I don't know if that's because it is a light load or some other factor. Maybe the extractor spring on this is worn out, I don't know. I did change the recoil spring in this when I bought it, so it has a new recoil spring because I had no idea how good that was. This is a pretty old gun, this is a Gen 2. So out of the three, it's really up to you what you want to choose. But if somebody asks me, hey, if I want to get into a 40 Smith & Wesson really cheap, I want something that's reliable, that's accurate, that doesn't have a lot of recoil, I would suggest getting an M&P 40 police trade-in Gen 1 any day of the week. You can get these even cheaper than I did. I've seen them like $225, $250 online, but it just so happened when I picked one up from a local shop, $275 is what I paid. It came with 3 magazines, it came with the original box, all the paperwork, and the back straps as well. So incredible value, shoots well, reliable. The SD40 is in the middle as far as price and everything goes, and then the Glock, most expensive, but if you want a Glock, get a Glock. Nobody's going to tell you otherwise. So thanks again for watching another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. God bless America. Support your 2A rights. Get out there and shoot. And you remember, if someone asks you to give up some of your freedom for the greater good, remind them that freedom is always the greater good. Have a great day.